What's happening, my friends? Jason Woodland back again with Always the Journey TV. This time we are on episode number 60, representing all kinds of amazing people out here. But yeah, Always the Journey TV has been rocking and rolling over this last, I'm thinking it's going on almost 2 years, but at least a year and a half nonetheless. And I want to thank you very much for your time and dedicating watching all these amazing people and learning about their histories and everything they've got going on. The entire objective of this podcast is to spotlight people out here in the community, to talk to them about their businesses, their jobs, their music, their art, their side hustles, their event spaces, and everything in between. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. I would sincerely appreciate it if you could give us a thumbs up on the video and or throw us a comment. And of course, subscribe to the channel. I always forget which side, but there's a corner where there's the little subscribe button, so feel free to do so. Anyway, today I'm extremely excited about introducing to you a good friend named Kevin Wyatt. Kevin has been an investigator for over 30 years. He worked for the state and local police departments as a patrolman, trainer, and detective. Kevin has also worked for the Utah Insurance Fraud Division, where he investigated hundreds, if not thousands, of insurance fraud cases. Kevin is also a certified instructor at the Utah Peace Officers Academy, known as POST. He has taught firearms and emergency vehicle operations. Kevin has owned and operated EyesOn Private Investigations since 2008, where he has grown the business from a solo operation to a thriving business with 9 to 11 investigators working on all types of cases. Kevin is the president of the Private Investigators Association of Utah, and during his 7 years there, he has implemented a comprehensive training program where members are offered up to 24 hours of training every year with their membership. Kevin is married with his wife, Shanna. They live in Salt Lake area and have raised 5 children and 3 great grandchildren, that is. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to introduce my friend, Kevin Wyatt. What's happening?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning to you. It's a beautiful day.
It absolutely is. It's going to be warm today. It's nice outside.
That's what I'm saying. I think we definitely still need more snow, but I'm grateful for the sunshine and blue skies. I enjoy that weather thoroughly.
Agreed.
Awesome, man. Hey, well, I appreciate you being on the show today. I'm really excited to have all of my viewers learn more about your business and maybe even potentially help them in various endeavors they've got going on.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. I think it's a great opportunity.
Awesome. Thanks. So first of all, Kevin, I want to learn just a little bit more about your background. So you grew up in Utah, correct?
From teenage years up, yeah. I mean, we moved around quite a bit.
Okay. So in your younger days, where was one of your favorite places where you've lived?
I was born and raised in Missouri. My stepdad, my father was killed in Vietnam, but my stepfather, who basically raised me, he was an engineer, a civil engineer. So we moved around to different projects that he was assigned to do. Lived in Missouri. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in Mississippi. I think Utah's probably actually my favorite. I moved out here when I was 11 or 12 and just stayed.
Nice. So yeah, you've lived in a handful of different places then.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. So you said you made it to Utah in your teenage years. Was that in junior high or in high school?
I was in junior high. We actually lived out in the Vernal area. Went to high school there and then came out to Salt Lake to go to college.
Okay. What was living in Vernal like at that time?
It was actually booming. There was, in the 90s, it was a lot of oil boom. And then this project that my dad was working, he was building a coal-fired power plant that's out in Vernal. It's actually out in the middle of nowhere, but we lived in the Vernal area, and it was a booming city back then. And today it kind of is too. I think with oil prices the way it is, it may. If the oil prices stay up, it's probably going to get booming again.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And that's where they've got some of the dinosaurs and a museum out there, right?
Yeah, they do.
Okay. Yeah. All right, cool. So when you graduated high school, what did that path look like when you started getting involved so did you were in the Marines, is that correct?
I was not. That was my dad.
Oh, that was your dad. Okay.
I had this made for me, this flag behind me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, as a tribute to him. I came out to go to school. I actually started actually in an architectural role in the college. Um, did that for about a year and really wasn't digging it as much as I thought I would, I guess. And I took a few law enforcement classes and really thrived in it. I guess it was kind of my niche, I think. Um, and so I um, was at Solid Community College, and then I had an opportunity to go to the police academy, and I took it and got hired locally by originally West Jordan Police Department. Um, Stayed there for many, many years, took some other opportunities, ended up at the Utah Department of Insurance as an investigator for them. Um, and then in 2010, I was recruited by Cottonwood Heights Police Department based on a big case that we worked jointly. If anybody knows or watches the news, the Warren Stack case, which was a doctor who was basically selling prescriptions of OxyContin. That was a big case that kind of put me over at Cottonwood Heights. I ended up as an investigator there and retired in 2018 as a detective over there.
Oh, wow. So you've definitely got some longevity in that particular industry then.
Close to 30 years. I was just shy of 30.
Wow.
Yeah.
And of course you worked for the Department of Insurance also, but when you were at the Cottonwood Heights, would you say that you just worked all kinds of cases, or did you focus more specifically on doctors and prescriptions and that kind of stuff?
No, I mean, I was assigned just a general caseload of detective stuff. And so whether it was a felony theft, or I did actually most of the department's elder abuse and exploitation cases. In fact, I requested them. I see the elderly as true victims when they're being abused, they're taken advantage of. And so I took those cases for the department. I handled a homicide with them. I responded as an on-call for many various cases, whether it's a robbery or a whatever. I mean, we generalized there. We didn't really specialize because it wasn't a big enough department. So we got a little bit of everything.
Wow. Well, that's definitely commendable work, being out there and helping elderly people that are being abused. I mean, that seems to be a pretty serious problem across the board, would you say?
It certainly can be. There's a lot of elder abuse and exploitation. I see a lot of exploitation where people are taking advantage of them in their older years and basically stealing money from them or assets. Transferring through illegal powers of attorney because they're incapable of signing and those kinds of things. I've actually handled a few of those in this business too, in the private side, for some families, but it's an interesting area for sure.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it. So, of course, you were taking some courses in law enforcement back in college, and you said that you felt like you were good at it and you felt a match. But did you feel like, I mean, what do you think was the original sort of inspiration to even start taking some of those courses and to pursue that as a career ultimately?
My son's wife, my ex-wife, her father was a police officer for Murray City, and it was intriguing. I think, when you're younger, you play cops and robbers and cowboys and Indians type stuff. And I think law enforcement is one of those fields that I think a lot of people are intrigued by, or at least are interested in. Just not a lot of people that go into the field, I guess.
Right. So, when did you sort of identify that you wanted to maybe go off on your own as a private investigator? Was that sort of early on, or was that sort of later on in your career?
Well, it was actually around 2007 and 8 when I was at the Department of Insurance. And what happened was, is I was an insurance investigator, and so insurance companies would hire private investigators to investigate insurance claims, whether it was a vehicle that caught fire, whether it was an insurance claim for an injury, and they thought people might be faking or that they burned their own car or whatever. I would see cases come in from insurance companies, and they would inevitably hire a private investigator. And those cases really lacked substance. They lacked what we needed to actually prosecute. I mean, I remember one case. This gal was claiming an injury. She had a new baby. She was a single mom, or at least dad. I can't remember. Maybe dad was away a lot. Maybe he traveled a lot. I don't remember. But she had a restriction on a back injury that she's not supposed to lift more than 10 pounds. So an investigator gets video of her carrying a bag of groceries, a gallon of milk, and her child, and their child was clearly more than 10 pounds. She carries that inside. And in 3 days of surveillance, that's the only video they got. So they submitted that to our agency as fraud. And I don't, first of all, I don't think there's very few attorneys, and I can't think of an attorney that would file that charge, because it's not enough conduct, violating conduct, meaning you have to show a pattern of conduct for that to be fraud. Her defense would be, well, I'm a single mom, I'm home, I've got to carry my child in, I've got to carry my groceries. I understand that that's against doctor's orders, but did you know that I had to take a Lortab and lay down for 4 hours because, it hurt my back?
Right.
I mean, there are things you still have to do. You still have to function.
Exactly.
And so you have to really show a pattern of conduct. I remember another case. They said, well, this guy he's a mechanic and he's out on injury. He's claiming a back injury. Well, we did surveillance on the case ourselves when I was running my business and got him working on cars in his driveway 3 days in a row for hours at a time. That's a pattern of conduct. And so in 2007 and 8, I noticed that I thought we could do a better job, I guess is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I opened the business and really didn't do much with it because I was actually working for the Department of Insurance. And so I couldn't pursue those types of cases. And then when I got picked up by Cottonwood Heights Police Department in 2010, they let me keep my business. And so I kind of ran the business. I didn't go out in the field. I let investigators do the work. I managed and ran the business and did training and billing and those kinds of things, which was the agreement that I had with the police department. And so, and over from 2010 to 2018, when I retired, we just got busier and busier and busier. And so it was a really good transition for me to retire in 2018 and go full time in my business.
Wow, that's really cool that they allowed you to have that as a side hustle.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and we weren't real busy. We didn't do a ton of work, but I built a reputation and a clientele that knew that they could I could ramp up in 2018 when I retired. And so it really helped that transition from being a police officer, detective working 40 hours a week to moving into a retired full-time investigator privately.
Wow, that's really cool. So, and getting to know you over this, last, while, I've learned that you're not the kind of person that's just trying to just nail people for the sake of just nailing them. You're also really trying to just find the truth wholeheartedly. And that there's some people that have been sort of accused of something that you work like heck to try to find out what the truth is. And you've actually been able to exonerate people in the past.
Absolutely. We'll do some criminal defense work. And we had a case where an individual had been charged with some child abuse claims. We investigated it, found out that there were multiple claims by the other parent over the course of several years, all of them unfounded, all of them shown to be false. And so this new claim of child abuse, though the parent made some mistakes, I don't believe that it was to the level of criminality. I mean, people do dumb things, right? We're all human. People make mistakes. But I was able to review the police reports, review the DCFS reports, review court records, and show that not only was it likely false, but that the story and the narrative had been changed 4 or 5 different times in the various reports. And so a lot of times attorneys will just say, you know what, it's your job to go through all of these documents, to go through all of these, do some interviews, do whatever you need to do. Just tell me. But, the opposite is true. I had an attorney hire me that says, I need you to look at these interviews of these children to determine if there's a problem. And it was a child sex abuse. And I reviewed a couple hours of interviews, and I called the attorney back and I said, you're not going to be able to show through the interviews that there was a problem. So if you're trying to get your client off, you're not going to be able to do it through these interviews. They did it right. So you need to find another way. And so it's not a hired gun, if you will. There are people out there who will lie, right, to show the position that they want you to show, right?
Yeah.
We don't do that. It is what it is. I've had clients call and say, hey, my spouse, my wife, or my husband is cheating on me. I'm sure of it. In fact, we had one recently, started in December. We watched this gal 3 or 4 hours a day when she was out in public for almost a month. Never saw anything. And so I went back to the husband and said, she's not. There's nothing. And so it's about finding the truth, right? It's about giving people peace of mind. Even sometimes, I mean, I've had people call and say, hey, I think this is occurring. I've had these indications. I hope it's not true, but I need to know. I just need to know for me so I can move forward. Whether it's they think that their spouse is cheating. Hey, if they're not, that's great. I can work on me and fixing the relationship because it's me, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's worth a few $100 or a few $1,000s to figure that out.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting point because as humans, very rarely do we want to say, you know what, it's my fault. Let me figure out what I need to do to fix this thing. We always want to try to say, oh, it's somebody else. But in that case, yeah, it may give somebody that opportunity to be like, oh, it really isn't someone else doing this thing, and I've got to look inward, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And so our goal is to find information, whatever that information is, whether it's criminal, whether it's civil, whether it's family law, whatever that is. We just want information so decisions can be made based on fact, not based on hunches or what somebody just thinks.
Yeah, exactly. So back when you were at the Division of Insurance, what would you say or the Department of Insurance, what would you say was one of the most bizarre situations that you witnessed, if you can share?
I mean, well, if you're talking about cases and things, I mean, that doctor that we talked about earlier, Dr. Stack, that was a big case. We turned over 40,000 documents to prosecution to turn over for discovery. 45,000 prescriptions were written.
Whoa.
19 patients that we know of died. Some of those were as a result of other things, but they were also abusing the drugs.
Yeah.
That was a big case. I've had other cases where, back in 2008, when, like today, gas was over $4 a gallon. In the recession of 2008, everybody who owned a full-size SUV, all their cars, I mean, they were found at the bottom of lakes. They were on fire. I mean, we got a lot of cases where that happens when gasoline or, the economy turns, people turn to insurance to try and recover their losses sometimes, which, it's fraud. And we would see a lot of cases like that where they're taking advantage of the insurance thinking, well, I pay for it. I'm going to file an insurance claim.
Right. What they fail to understand is that insurance is not a savings account.
And well, we know our rates go up because of these things like that, right? I mean, whether it's it's a car or whether it's an injury, our rates are what they are because of losses.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's really fascinating. Yeah, I could see how things could really transition along those lines during a recession or a downturn, where people are like, "Oh gosh, gas prices are up. I've got a $585 car payment, and I lost my job, and I'll just instead of have it repoed or something, they just sort of like have it disappear or burn it down or something crazy."
End up at the bottom of a river or a lake. You can't
Wow.
recover it.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. So, okay, so you started your private investigation firm in 2008. You've been going way strong ever since, and now, I mean, you're just, I mean, you're an extremely thriving business. You've got a multitude of investigators.
We
Can you
do.
tell us the sort of suite of products, so to speak, that you work with? Like, what are all the things that you would investigate?
Well, like I said, we started the business in '08. We were under another name until 2010, but we originally started it thinking we were going to do a lot of insurance cases, whether that's insurance defense, insurance fraud, insurance whatever. And we do a fair amount of that, and love to do them. We do a lot of family law, whether it's a cheating spouse, whether it's alimony termination. That's a big one, and people aren't necessarily familiar with that. But if you got a divorce and you were ordered to pay $3 or $4 or $5,000 a month in alimony, you have to pay it typically every month for how many months you were married. And usually it's a negotiation, but if you were married for 20 years, you might have to pay that for 10 or 15 years. Well, if your ex-spouse, moves in with a boyfriend or vice versa, you can terminate that alimony payment, but you have to get proof, right? And so we get hired to do alimony termination cases. We do a fair amount of child custody type stuff. We do some missing persons. I think the majority of what we do today is insurance and family law. Like I said, we do a little bit of criminal defense here and there, and we would certainly take more. It's just we've built a name in the insurance and family law arena, and so we that's our big caseload right now.
Okay, interesting. What about geographic locations? So, if someone watching this video thought, "Gosh, you know what? I need to solicit their services." What are all the areas that you can cover?
I can cover the entire state of Utah. I can also cover Wyoming, and I can cover most of Idaho. Um, Now I have investigators. All of my investigators are actually in Utah, but we've had cases where somebody will call and say, "Hey, my fiance is in Jackson Hole. I believe that she's cheating," because there's really not any investigators. There are probably investigators up there, but Idaho and Wyoming don't require a license, and people want to hire somebody who's licensed. And so they'll pay me to send an investigator to Jackson Hole or wherever, because they want somebody licensed, because they know that license comes with some vetting, right?
Yeah.
So I've got multiple investigators. I've got two in St. George. I've got 5 or 6 right here in Salt Lake Valley, which covers Utah, Davis, Weber, Salt Lake counties. I've got 2 up in the Ogden area. So I can cover just about everything. We go to Park City a lot. We did a case up in Heber this last weekend. I've gone out to Vernal. I've got clients out in the Roosevelt area. So we can cover just about everything. The problem with, if you want to send me to Moab is, the drive time and the miles. Fuel right now is crazy. And so, we've got to compensate for that, but we can cover the whole state.
Okay. All right. Cool. So the whole state. Tell me a little bit about what all goes into getting a license to be a private investigator.
There are actually 3 licenses in Utah. I'm what they call an agent. An agent has to prove currently, the agent has to prove 5,000 hours of background in law enforcement or investigative.
Oh, wow.
Certainly my law enforcement counts, right? and you have to get a liability policy. The state minimum is 500,000. I carry $2 to $3 million, just because insurance companies that hire us require a $2 million policy typically. And then there's a registrant license, which is somebody who has experience but not quite enough to be an agent. Several of my investigators are registrants because of their prior law enforcement, or they've got enough years of training. And then there's an apprentice license, and an apprentice is somebody who's learning. Most of it is, in-house training and on the job. They have to be under supervision of an agent, which I've got several apprentices as well. But to say that they're less trained, they don't have as many hours, but I give them the same training that I get or that I have. And so they get trained by someone who has that background. We train them in report writing and, video and all kinds of different things.
Oh, wow. That's ultra interesting. So 3 licenses. What is what state do you know off the top of your head is the toughest one to get your licenses in?
Nevada is actually a tough one, not because of the hours. I think their hours are similar to ours. But the cost for a license is a lot. I mean, it's a couple $1,000s just for a license in Nevada. So rather than, when we have cases that take us to Nevada, it's cheaper for me to hire an investigator in Nevada that's licensed. And I've got 2 in the Vegas area that I do a lot of work with. So if we've got a cheater that ends up in Las Vegas, I leave it to them to follow them down there because they're experts at knowing how to get around those hotels and finding people in a crowd and a sea of 10,000 people.
Oh, that is fascinating.
It's amazing. I've had them track people for me, and gosh, I don't know how they do it, but they know what room they're in. They know what restaurant they ate at last night. I'm like, okay, that's pretty amazing. Just give me some video, right?
That's wild. Why do you think that Nevada is so much more expensive than most other states?
I don't know. It's government. So is it money? I don't know. I don't know what it costs to be an insurance agent in Nevada. Maybe all of their fees are a lot. I know they don't have I guess they don't have an income tax, right? So maybe they pick up some of it that way. I really don't understand. Now, if I needed to go down there, I can get a provisional license. I think it's like a 2-week license, but you only get it one time. And so
it better be worth it.
Yeah. So it's just cheaper for me to hire somebody down there.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
And it's their backyard, right?
What was that?
I was gonna say, and it's their backyard, right? I've been to Vegas a lot of times, but I don't know my way around like they would.
Yeah, without a doubt. And the thing is that Las Vegas, in general, is a different place than Las Vegas Strip and all those really close-knit hotels and casinos and everything. That could be a really bizarre place to try and find someone.
Yeah. Gotta find your wife when you lose her down there, right?
Oh, that's funny. So what would you say is the best way to get a hold of you if someone wanted to learn more about your services and possibly reach out to hire you?
I have an email. It's Kevin at EyesOnPI, which is EYESONPI, like privateinvestigator.com. And then my phone number is 801-809-8533. They can certainly go to the website and hit the request there as well. But just call me direct. That number will also accept text messages, so we can do both.
What's that phone number again?
That's 801-809-8533.
8533. So let's take a look at this. Is that right?
That's it.
How do you like that technology?
That's awesome.
And then also, do I have the email correct right here?
You absolutely do.
All right. So I've got 2 more questions, but the first one is being a private investigator as exciting as Magnum PI made it look?
No, I wish it was. Sometimes it can be really boring. We might be sitting on surveillance for 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 hours, and it can get really, really boring. Magnum was always working with the local police and jumping in a helicopter. I wish I could afford a helicopter. We do have a drone if we need one, but um, it's not like being in Hawaii and driving a Ferrari. Um, but it's interesting though.
Okay, so the other day we were talking about trying to get you a Ferrari, so I think we need to work on that because
I do. We can set up a GoFundMe. I said, anybody that wants to put into a GoFundMe and send me some money to build out that Ferrari, I'm happy to do it.
the only problem is though is that all eyes are on the Ferrari. So if you're trying to be a private investigator, that's not really the car to show up in, right?
Well, you can show up in that car to meet clients, I guess, and then use another car for the surveillance.
Yeah, or if you're located in Miami, where like everybody's got a Ferrari,
Right.
then you're melding in, right?
Right, a Ferrari and a Lambo, and yeah, absolutely.
Did you grow up watching cop shows and private investigator shows and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the Magnum PIs, the Miami Vice, the even Colombo, and I mean even some of the old ones, right? Always thought that was interesting. It's not TV, it's certainly not that exciting, but I mean it's enjoyable work. It's very satisfying when you get what it is you need to get, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's pretty funny watching all those shows. I mean, they were definitely way popular for a really long time. I mean, there was all kinds of really fun ones out there.
Yeah,
Starsky and Hutch, and
absolutely.
I mean all the old school classics, Chips.
Yep. Even what 1 Adam 12? That's even a really old one, right?
Well, I'm not sure if I know that one. What is it called
You'll
again?
have to look that one up. 1 Adam 12. I think
One
that's
out
what.
of 12.
Yeah, it's two Los Angeles cops that were always in the middle of stuff. It's black and white. I think it was black and white.
Oh wow, yeah, I've never even heard of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, this has definitely been really informative, learning more about your business. Is there anything that I may have missed that my listeners or my watchers? Well, that sounds sort of interesting. Like I've got a bunch of private eyes watching the video.
Right. I think if you have a question, I would say if you have a hunch that something's going on, it certainly might be. And so call me and let's just talk through it, right? It may be nothing, but it might be something. Interesting point. If you can show that your spouse is cheating, you in Utah, you can actually increase your alimony award. But the opposite is also true. If you can show that your spouse is cheating on you and you are the money maker, you can decrease your alimony payments.
That is really fascinating. Yeah,
And so
I had no
it's
clue
worth
about
a
that.
little bit of money to figure that out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it all depends on the longevity, right?
Right.
Because if you're being hired for 2 or 3 hours a day for 2 weeks, that can definitely start adding up. But in the long game, it could make really good sense.
Yeah, especially if your alimony is a lot. I mean, if you're paying $300 or $400 a month for a year or two, it's probably not worth it. But if you're going to pay $3,000 or $4,000 a month for the next 10 years, it's probably worth looking at.
Wow.
There's also an interesting law too that it says if you know that your spouse is violating the order, meaning that they're shacking up or living with someone, and you do nothing, you actually waive the right to challenge it.
Is there a particular time frame for that though?
1 year.
1 year. Okay.
If you find out about it and you don't investigate it within that year, then you've accepted it and you will pay it to the end.
But then you have to also prove that person knew about it.
Correct.
That would be a little bit of a tough one unless you saw him at the house or having a barbecue or hanging out or.
A lot of times couples are open though with their ex, Bob's living with, and so they've got text messages showing that it went back more than a year, and then you're kind of messed up. It's kind of one of those things that you either do it or you don't.
Interesting. Okay. Have you ever been in a high-speed chase?
Several.
Wow. Is that pretty freaky?
It's pretty intense. The last couple that I were in, I pitted the bad guy. So pit maneuver where you make them spin out.
Just like on TV.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's what I was trained to do. I was a pursuit driving instructor at the police academy. So I was one of the first. I was training people to do that back all the way to 1991. Believe it or not.
Wow.
When they first opened the range out at Camp Williams.
Oh, interesting. So do you feel like you could pretty much catch anybody?
I guess it depends on what they're driving. I can tell you that well-trained police officers that have gone through the course that use the training can outdrive just about anybody. But you get on a straightaway with a Ferrari, you might not be able to keep up with it. But city driving, our local law enforcement are pretty well trained, and they can probably outdrive most anybody. It's again, when somebody's running, they're outdriving the car, or they're outrunning the car that they're driving, and so they end up crashing or making mistakes that the police officers can actually take advantage of.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, when it comes to driving, I mean, it doesn't matter how fast the car is, unless you have a really deep understanding of how to drive that car. I mean, I've driven a lot of really interesting, excuse me, cars. I mean, the Lamborghini Aventador, Maseratis, McLarens, and so forth. And I'm a very conservative driver. I'm not the hey, let's rally this thing to a 200 miles per hour or anything. And I know that, I mean, those machines are complete beasts. And if you don't know how to really maneuver them, I mean, you can really, those things can get out of your control ultra quickly.
They certainly can. Police cars, historically, most of them are not all that fast. It's just the officers know how to drive.
Oh, that makes sense. So the next question I've got here is, what is one of your favorite songs or favorite quotes or both?
Songs, I thought about this because you sprung this on me earlier, and I don't know of a specific song. I mean, I'm typically I actually like Post Malone's work, but I also like Jason Aldean's work, and Tim McGraw. So I kind of like all kinds over a lot of different genres. It's just, I don't know. I mean, Post Malone's got some great work, but so does Jason Aldean, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. When you're, is there a particular go-to song that sort of pumps you up for your day when you're going out on a mission?
It's funny. My ringtone is actually Magnum PI. We did that on purpose.
That's awesome.
That's usually the first song I hear of the day is my phone ringing.
You know what it sort of reminds me of? I can, and I know this isn't the case, but I could only imagine, like, the very moment you hear that ringtone and all of a sudden you get up and it's like Commando, and you start putting on the black makeup under your eyes and start putting in all the knives and the guns and the grenades and everything.
Yeah.
Remember that movie?
Yep. Our weapon of choice around here is a video camera that's HD.
Yeah, things have definitely changed, haven't they?
Yep.
Wow. Well, this has definitely been a pleasure, Kevin. I appreciate you dedicating some time to teach us more about your business and what you can do to help people out there in the community. Is there anything else that you'd like to share that I may have missed that we need to learn about?
No, I think we covered a lot of it. Like I said earlier, I mean, if you have a question about something that's going on, just call me. Let's talk through it, because a lot of times talking through it is all you need. And I tell attorneys, you think one way. Attorneys think, what do I need to file to get from A to Z? I think, what evidence what would get us from A to Z and have us get rid of all the stuff in the middle, right? What can I get for the attorney that takes us right to the end? I mean, that's good evidence of the whatever that thing is, right?
Yep.
So
exactly. Dang. Well, thanks a lot, Kevin. I'm going to have you hang out in the green room for a few moments while I wrap up the show. Is that cool with you?
Perfect. I appreciate it. Again, all your listeners, I appreciate, or your watchers, I appreciate the opportunity to chat for a little bit.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You bet. Talk to you soon.
All right, cool. Hang tight just a sec. There you go, my friends. Kevin Wyatt with EyesOn Private Investigations. Definitely reach out to him if you have any questions or want to learn a little bit more about something he could potentially help you with. He's an extremely well-versed individual and has an awesome background. Anyway, this is episode number 60 of Always the Journey TV. I'm again your host, Jason Woodland. Thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to throw us a like, throw us a comment, and then also subscribe to the channel. It would be sincerely appreciated. But anyway, I wish you all a fantastic week and much love. Take care.